And here's where the intermittent fasting conversation comes in, because I actually see this working against so many women. And I've actually seen this on a continuous glucose monitor where someone did prolonged fasting or prolonged intermittent fasting and their blood sugar stayed very, very high, like 150s to 200s, when really you want that to be, I mean, depending on what time of the day it is. I mean, you want your fasted glucose ideally to be between 80 and 90. And so then you start focusing on meal composition. So meaning your proteins, your fats, your carbohydrates. So people are missing these two really, really important components to meal timing. And they're just going right into cutting carbs, increasing protein. And I'm not saying that increasing protein is bad or negative. It's just we're going right to that before we're even focusing on the other two things. And we're also taking into account our stress level and how we're moving through the day. Okay. And so lastly, before I get into some tips that you can start trying right away, is that when you are in that survival state that I was talking about, that sympathetic dominance, it will actually blunt your hunger cues. So when your cortisol is high, again, your body is not prioritizing eating or digestion. And this is another big conversation. If you're having things like gas and bloating and constipation and diarrhea and acid reflux and food sensitivities, is that your body cannot prioritize digestion when it is running from the tiger, either hypothetically or in reality. And so that's a really important key and piece to this as well. And I want to share something that I experienced a couple of years ago. So I reached out to the functional medicine doctor that I was seeing at the time, because he could prescribe me a continuous glucose monitor. And there are other ways to get those. It was the easiest way for me to get it at that time. And my intention behind using a continuous glucose monitor was to see, okay, if I eat sweet potatoes versus rice versus quinoa versus fruit, like these whole food sources of carbohydrates, are there specific carbohydrates that are better for my body than others? That was my intention behind the experiment. And what I learned from that experiment was a little bit of that, but the biggest takeaway I had. So there were two things that positively impacted my blood sugar more than anything to do with what I was eating. And those were, number one, walking after a meal. And number two, some kind of pause, nervous system regulation, meditation, mindfulness, something to do with that. Because when I was wearing the continuous glucose monitor, I was also going through a program at the time that had a lot of those types of practices built into it. And I would find if I would do something for about 15 minutes, and a lot of it was guided meditation, if I would do that for 15 minutes, my blood sugar would drop anywhere from 15 to 20 points. So it would be potentially, in the, between 100 and 110, or even in the 90s. And I would see it drop all the way between 70 and 75. I was like, wow. So that's a huge thing. And this is where, again, we constantly go to strangling nutrition when there's so much more to this picture. Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about is when you wake up and you don't have an appetite, and that survival state is actually blunting hunger cues. So when melatonin, which is also a hormone, and leptin, which is also a hormone, don't clear in the morning. So these are your nighttime programs. So when those nighttime programs don't come down in the morning, to allow cortisol, your daytime programs, to dim up, to say, okay, it's daytime, like it's time for us to wake up, you likely will not have an appetite. You will have slower digestion. You will have low body temperature. You will have more insulin and glucose resistance. And this is where not having an appetite in the morning is not a flex. It's giving you information about your metabolic function. And when you start having an appetite in the morning, I can guarantee you that your metabolism is working better, and you're going to have you're going to have better mood, you're going to have better energy, and if your goal is to release weight or body fat, you're going to have a much easier time doing it.